Good morning, everybody. South Florida, throughout the country. Super excited to have you here for what I believe is our sixth or seventh Impact Lab. We started this out back in the spring, got a great response. Um, I'm fortunate to have some really, really amazing friends. That's one of my superpowers, is great friends who are always willing, who are experts on topics that I know we are all passionate about and interested in. And super generous to have them always willing to come in and share what they're seeing right now in industry on various topics. This topic is something that I have been really dialed in on for the 15 plus years that I have lived in South Florida. And that is where this region is going from a tech perspective as the economy at that point began moving, very, very quickly into tech dominant. It was really exciting to know that you're in one of those areas of the country that is prioritizing tech, that is doing all that it can to nurture that from a community perspective. But boy, have we seen a lot of changes in this space nationally, globally over the past few years, rapid head spinning changes. And so, never a better time, I think, than to pause right now and to dig deep on this topic, which is building South Florida's tech tapestry. We're going to be talking about collaboration, talent, and connection. I wouldn't call it an interview because it's a really good friend. We're going to have a fireside candid chat. Before we do, and as we have, I know some people that are hopping on late, just a few things by way of more introduction. Hold on one second. So, question. We want this to be interactive. I have plenty to ask our amazing guest. No shortage of things I know that I'm curious in that I think that you are too. But make it interactive throughout this. We'll pause at the end for questions, but we don't have to pause at all because we'd love for you to enter in your questions into the chat throughout this hour. And if you do, we'll pause what we're doing and we'll get on your questions and we want this to be super practical and for you to really come away learning the things that you came in wanting to know about what the realities of the tech community and ecosystem, where it's at, where it's going, what leaders in the space are seeing, the challenges that are there. So submit questions throughout this hour. We want to get to those. So before we get into why we're all here, just of course, a shameless plug. I'm Alex Price, founder and CEO of Mission Impact Strategies. After 20 years in the corporate philanthropy, corporate affairs, PR world, me and some amazing leaders throughout the state of Florida have built this organization, Mission Impact Strategies, to help nonprofits, government entities, and companies. What we say, our superpower is to help them amplify their influence and amplify their impact. Organizations that want to grow, that want to go on a meaningful journey of growth of their impact and are at an inflection point and want to have advisors that have 20, 25 years experience doing this kind of work, pouring into your teams and helping make this season of your organization the most transformative. That's why we wake up in the morning. That's the good stuff. Let us know if you're in that space or you want to explore where you think as a leader you can help take your organization. We love it and we'd love to work with you. I'm fortunate not to be alone here. These are some of my fearless leaders that I get to work with day in, day out. Of course, our chief of staff, Amy Armstrong, who's sort of driving the ship behind the scenes here today. Andre Bailey, Clayton Lewis Ferrara. These are individuals who have not just addressed social issues and grown organizations, but have been a part of meaningfully solving them in important cities here in the US and abroad in various developing and otherwise countries. Their stories and resumes are worth a read, to say the least. So really, I feel very fortunate to be able to kind of swim in the waters of these amazing, brilliant and passionate individuals. So I consider myself extremely lucky. I feel really lucky because of the gentleman that we get to spend this next hour with. We all have leaders we admire on a professional level. This gentleman is someone that I admire to the hill professionally. He's just one of the best and dearest human beings that I know. I've known Imran. He's laughing because I'm making him blush. I think that's why he's laughing. But Imran Siddiqui is the new CEO of an organization that I have been involved with for a dozen years or so, South Florida Tech Hub. But he's so much more than that. We go back about 10 years through Leadership Florida, statewide leadership organization. I've had the real honor of serving on an important South Florida board where I get to see his wisdom in action and makes me better every day that I can sit around that boardroom watching him lead. And so I'm really honored to have my friend first and foremost, but a leader that I absolutely admire and learn from. You're going to admire and learn from him too. And if you're lucky, you'll become his friend as well because he is a leader that's not just focused on a city or a county. He is a truly one of those truly regional leaders who has the not so easy task of bringing cities and counties that are very diverse, leaders that are very diverse together under one common umbrella for one really important mission that we can all benefit from, and that is a thriving tech sector in our beloved region of South Florida. So, with that, Imran Siddiqui, Imran, thank you so much for being here, buddy. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
Alex.
you.
I don't even know what to say in response to that introduction, but thank you very much. You must know that I'm incredibly uncomfortable with compliments, and that was like the greatest compliment I've ever received. So thank you for that introduction.
Hey, making you uncomfortable, that's a side gig. That's just a personal,
No,
hobby.
thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and Amy, the whole team, Andre, appreciate I'm looking forward to the conversation. I love everything you're doing. Congrats on your success.
Well, hey, I think before we kind of get into the meat of our discussion, what you're doing, what you have stepped into as a leader, really, I know only your initial months, not you're no newcomer to the space, you're a veteran in the space, but you're a new leader in an important entity. Could you kind of set the table a little bit, talk about a little bit about what you're doing now? I've got a couple slides. I'll just show some visuals, and then we'll dive into the discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you to you guys for organizing this, for leading in your own way and everything you've done for so long, Alex and Amy and Andre and the whole team. And thank you to the attendees who are taking time out of your day to join. I really appreciate it. I am a native South Floridian of 40 plus years. And Alex, you might remember these days. I am from a time when the 305 extended from Miami to West Palm Beach. And I know that makes me sound ancient, but it's
Does, by the
funny.
way.
But
Yes.
it's funny how zip codes can shape our identity and the way we think about ourselves, right? People rep the 305, the 561, the 954. Nobody says the 954, but we can maybe get that going. But that's a good starting point for me because I've lived and worked, and we came to Miami when I was 4, in the early 80s, and we've been here since in South Florida. We're in Miami, then we were in Broward, my childhood, and been in Palm Beach County since 1996. I've lived and worked in every county in the Tri-County area. So for me, it's always been one broader metro area. It's always been natural for me to go to, Key Biscayne as it is to go up to Juno Beach or to the Treasure Coast. And I know it's not that natural for all people, but it's always been one community. And in my terms of my background, I'm an attorney by trade. I I have always been involved in and interested in technology from a young age. I made the fateful jump from engineering major to law, which my parents may love, may not. We've never discussed it, but yeah, I have always been very deeply involved and invested. Always kind of that nerd with the 486 and kind of tinkering with stuff despite going down the legal path. And I had a extended career, kind of nonprofit and civic engagement, public sector work. And then I was recruited to Broward College to launch BCEX, which is the accelerator that we created and launched, that I stand by, that is still standing and launching founders. And it was during that time that I joined Tech Hub formally. I had always been involved by joining the startup committee as a co-chair with my buddy, Sarah Lucas. If you're in the room, give her a shout out. And I'm drawn to this organization because of our mission, which is on the slide in front of you. It's about building South Florida as a region. And we can go into details in a second, but it's this background of mine personally being a regional guy. And then this organization saying our goal is to connect across the entire region, not focusing on cities or counties, but bringing leaders together from across the area. That really drew me to it. And so when the opportunity arose, um, it's an organization that I led the startup committee for a couple of years. I know so many members of the board. I really care about the mission, and so I was happy and honored to lead it. So I'm in this role now, and I got to give one quick shout out, Alex, to you, our 2025 Golden Palms MC. Did a great job just last month, so thank you for supporting us in that way. We were able to.
I like to bask in your glory, and if you give me the opportunity, I'll do it.
You helped us honor some really great leaders from across the region, so thank you.
Oh, no, absolutely. And it's a vibrant organization. There was a few, I think a lot of people who are new to the idea of Tech Hub South Florida might wonder, what is that? How vibrant is that? Boy, is it ever. I mean, it is an exciting organization. It's some of the most exciting individuals in our region that make up this. What do members do within the organization? Like what is that experience? What is that value?
So we focus on essentially two buckets at both ends of the kind of barbell spectrum, right? So we have our employers and our corporations and our companies that really understand that the South Florida tech and economic ecosystem of 2035 and 2045 is one that's interconnected, one where everyone is operating together. And so these are companies like FPL and City Furniture and Office Depot and so many I can shout out that support us from Palm Beach County south through the Treasure Coast. And these are folks that are invested and believe in the value of engagement across our sometimes silos, right? So we have the companies and they see the vision. They really see where the ecosystem can be in 10 or 20 years. And we price our corporate memberships, right? We're kind of technically a chamber, we're more of a community, but in terms of legal designation, so we have members and they can be corporate members, and then we have individual members, and we price it intentionally at a very affordable rate, such that if you are a freelancer, if you are a solopreneur, if you are a developer who just happen to drop in on this conversation and you want to get involved, we price it very friendly at that point. And so it's the talent base, and we have talent focused programming. Our hackathon actually is tomorrow. There's still registration available. It'll be on campus at City Furniture. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you know folks that might be interested, so we have our hackathon, we have developer facing monthly meetups, we have DevCon, which is an annual developer conference, we have our Tech Talent Fest. That's all kind of priming the pump on the talent side. Of course, we work with partners, right? Higher ed institutions, boot camps, all these folks that contribute to the ecosystem, and we support them. So we get the kind of talent base, we support them, we organize them in our way, we amplify what's good going on in the community. And then we have our employers, right? Our employers see the vision. And then our employers, then our goal is to then connect the dots between the employers and the talent, such that our employers don't have to go out of the ecosystem to hire, which of course happens. We're trying to change that. But also our talent doesn't have to leave to get employed, right? That's a biggie in South Florida, where
It works both
affordability is an
ways.
issue. Yeah.
No, I
So
mean,
that's our goal. That's our strategy. I say that's kind of like that's our secret plan, right? Is we want to kind of cultivate the talent base, organize the employers, connect between the two, and then connect among the employers across the region, hence building an ecosystem, hence doing our part to turn South Florida into a tech hub.
but and I want to say, my personal involvement was a lot of the kind of more glitzy things like the hackathon. I helped host it at the zoo when I was at Comcast, and then when I was at Office Depot, we would host it there. Full weekends, in our auditorium throughout the campus. But really, what's been most interesting to me is talent, right? It's
Yeah.
the importance of keeping top talent here and helping great employers feel like they can thrive here because the talent is here, and that's mission critical. I also think that we always think tech startups, and we Mission Impact Strategies, we're our home is 1909 up in West Palm. There's lots of tech startups that were around it, and that's really exciting. But also thinking about how a thriving tech ecosystem in South Florida affects the public sector, affects big business, small business, and the nonprofit social service sector. So, and we're going to get into that, but how it might be surprising to some to learn that like we all have something at stake here, and it's really important. Um, and so we know you and I have talked like we're South Florida guys through and through. We love our sports teams. We love all the cities. We love the potential of this area. We're both raising four kids. We're crazy. We're both raising four kids in this incredible community or region, I should say. Um, as opposed to other great regions and communities throughout the United States. We think of, there's always buzz around Austin and Nashville, what's happening out in California. And there's, of course, a big tie between the Northeast and here. Can you kind of share a little bit about, kind of start with, the state of the ecosystem and how that is relatively compares to some of these other regions that get a lot of press, that get a lot of chatter in terms of how vibrant they are?
Yeah, absolutely. Well put. You and I both are native guys, and as Floridians and long-term investors in South Florida and raising children here and have spouses here and are contributing to the economy. And our narrative cannot always match the reality. And the fact is that the South Florida tech ecosystem, is resilient, it's diversified, and it's on an upward trajectory. Not to say that it's not going to have wobbles, right? But if we look at where we're at compared to 10 years ago, and even if we compare it to the COVID and post-COVID boom and pullback, it's still on an upward trajectory, right? The region continues to add talent at one of the fastest clips in North America, right? So CBRE in their scoring tech talent report showed South Florida as a leader in tech job growth since 2021, and broader employment growth here is outpacing most U.S. Counties. So it's really actually strong. Of course, affordability and expenses have been going up as well. And so it can sometimes be hard to feel that. But if we look at the data is showing that it's actually growing considerably. On a capital front, we've had a ton of inflow, which has been incredible. We look at, Ken Griffin's presence in South Florida alone is a momentum shifter. And we're not even talking about the many other, the Thoma Bravos of the world that have moved into the area, the investment and effort that Stephen Ross is putting into investing in the technology ecosystem here in South Florida. There's been so much positive movement, but we're not Austin yet, right? The capital movement has been very positive. The momentum is real, but we're not Austin. As an example, PitchBook data shows that Miami drew roughly almost a 1.5 billion across 150 deals in the first half of 2025.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's
and for those who don't have perspective on that, what does that mean for Miami-Dade County? Like,
yeah, it means
what did that signal?
what that signals is investment in founders who are hiring employees, who are hiring vendors, who are purchasing or renting real estate, right? So it's the whole ecosystem is driving in. When we have founders that are successful, companies that are successful, right? When there's healthier deal flow, we see more VCs coming down here. More of our founders are getting rewarded with investment, right? And that's how we help folks who are accessing the tech ecosystem get rewarded for it. We all know South Florida, Miami, across South Florida, we are a hustler economy in the sense of we grind. And that entrepreneurial grit is rewarded finally with the VC inflow that we're seeing. So like Austin remains a top 5, tech talent market with deep scale and density. We compete more on growth rate, diversity, and then cross-sector industry ties, right? Our diversity is our strength. We're still early and folks can work together better and easier in a kind of earlier ecosystem. Atlanta and Denver, my brother lived in Atlanta. I love Atlanta. Denver, I love Colorado. I love Denver specifically. Very mature pipelines and research adjacencies. Our advantage is net in migration is strong. Global connectivity is huge. We all know that about South Florida, not just Latin America to Europe, and increasingly more across. Talking about going across South Asia to the Middle East, and our tri-county market that we are hoping to help collaborate, right, through platforms like the incredible work done by who is hosting me today here, the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, Emerge in Miami-Dade County, and then Palm Beach County and the efforts there. So how would I compare us? I would say strong. I would say real momentum, and I would say definitely upward trajectory.
And it's very encouraging that to hear you say that. And, again, kudos to these other, maybe slightly more mature ecosystems in Denver and Atlanta. It gives us, although we're different, we're competitive. I'm glad you mentioned that you're actually taking this event from the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, who's always on offense, selling this region in effective
Yeah.
ways. Because narrative really matters. And I wanted to get into that. There's the importance of kind of knowing, you know, like truly where we're at now, what's current status, but telling that story, the story of why South Florida is a great place to stay, build your tech company, invest dollars. It requires salesmanship. It requires telling a great story over and over and over. And I wanted to just kind of pick your brain a little bit on narrative, kind of what are potentially challenges, some of the things that you have to kind of refute and change the narrative, what you think our story should be in order to win.
Yeah. The part of what um not off topic, but I'm going to tell a little story. So before my wife agreed to marry me, before we got engaged, I laid out two things for her.
This is real salesmanship
This
right
is
here,
real. This
which we
is
can
real, and
apply
this
to
is tied.
anything.
I promise it's tied. One, I said, I went to law school in Massachusetts. I left the area. I wanted to kind of expand my network, but I always knew I was returning. I love this area, and I said to her two things. I said, one, I'm studying to be a public interest attorney. Just know what that means in terms of day to day. And I said that's kind of not relevant to the conversation. The second one, I said, I'm moving back to South Florida, and my wife, for those of you who know her or don't, very proudly Portland, Oregon based, rooted, educated in the Midwest, really kind of likes that pace. South Florida is a very different place from the Midwest or Oregon, right? And why did I say that? Because growing up down here, it killed me. You talk about kind of the narrative. It killed me to see a place that I knew to be great, to be rich, to walk out your front door and hear five languages, to have friends that are grinding and hustling and working hard, to see that represented boiled down to a Florida man joke or a headline on the Onion or something. It drove me nuts, right? And so we talk
Sure.
about it's talking about narrative building, right? Like South Florida being more than just a party destination, or South Florida being more than just a hype bubble. So let's talk about that for a second. And I have some specific examples
Yes.
I want to share. These are all real deals, right? In the last 6 months. Okay. So I brought them down for you. I jotted them down for you guys just to think about this, right? For those of us who
Well,
might be down on their ecosystem.
and I would say I'm glad you did because I know there's exciting things happening, and I feel like oftentimes it's a blip. They don't get celebrated maybe as much as they should, and a lot of people miss
Yeah.
what probably some of the things you're going to share. So thank you.
100. I mean, just listen to these numbers, okay? Aerospace Technology Group, based out of where? The Research Park at Florida Atlantic University, my alma mater, acquired by Bain Capital in the past, what, month or two at a nine-figure sum,
That's right.
okay?
That's right.
ModMed, Boca Raton-based EMR, had a majority stake acquired by Clear Lake Capital at a valuation of what? $5.3 billion.
Wow.
Okay. That's a
Homegrown, right?
locally
Homegrown.
homegrown company. Okay. Hope Hydration. This is something smaller, but it's relevant. $20 million to back it, right? These were hydration stations across, across Miami. Acuren Corporation closed a $1.7 billion merger with a Hollywood-based engineering and planning firm, NV5 Global. How about we talk about a huge announcement from this past week? ServiceNow, which is enterprise AI, has committed to West Palm Beach. Big announcement. Our governor was there. Stephen Ross was present. The mayor was there, bringing 856 jobs, a $1.8 billion investment in impact into Palm Beach County. And it was driven by, and they're taking up half of like this new One City Place tower in downtown West Palm Beach. And one of the cited reasons, it was driven by our youth. It was driven by the amount of 25 to 29-year-old population that is going to be the talent base for ServiceNow. That relocation is gigantic. And this is just like five or six that I kind of just jotted down before I came here.
Well,
So
that last one is really exciting. I
it's
mean, I think
huge.
people are worried AI. What's that going to mean from a workforce perspective? And I know there's going to be trade-offs, and we're going to talk about them. But that to me, hopefully, is a real sign of things to come. And I love the fact that they were uniquely motivated by what they saw from a workforce perspective. We work Mission Impact in downtown West Palm, and I got to tell you, it is like young professional central everywhere. I mean, I feel ancient when I go out to get a bite
Oh
to
yeah.
eat in a
Oh
good
yeah.
way, in a
Well,
good
that's
way.
also because we
Uh,
are ancient now at
oh,
West
thank
Palm.
you, thank you, thank you. Not at heart though, my friend. So these are 850 some odd net new AI specific
Mhm.
jobs.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's it.
And this is just a handful. And you're talking about the young energy in Miami and Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Just take a walk down Brickell. I mean, it's incredible. So, narrative matters because perception drives investment, right? And perception drives talent migration and it drives policy decisions. And, there's been this long perception of South Florida as a place you move to after your career in tech and you don't move here to build it. And I think that's an outdated notion. Now we are genuinely home to category defining companies, right? Corporate innovation hubs. Look at 35 Mules. Look at what FPL is doing up there.
Yeah,
Tied to these massive brands that are multi-billion dollar public companies. And look at our tech pool. It's actually diversifying and maturing. So I believe narrative building and sharing the wins for our region is critical. And South Florida Tech Hub, we are going to do our part to support any organization that's doing that. And we just have to change the narrative. Think back to a movie like Moonlight, which showed a side of Miami that many had never seen. Anybody saw was the glitz and glamour of South Beach, and then there was really the real Miami that many of us knew. And I think now it's time to tell that narrative when it comes to entrepreneurship and tech and our talent, that we have smart, hardworking people here. Just give them a shot.
no, absolutely. It is true. And there's always going to be, because of the natural beauty that we have, that kind of that tourism, that sort of vacation sort of visual. And we're great for that. We're arguably the best at that, but it's so one dimensional to think of this region that way. And but I know that it's incumbent on leaders like you to be relentless in your in your storytelling and your storytelling and narrative about this. I want to pivot for a second because when I was looking at kind of all the attendees that had registered today, and they're from across the landscape. In terms of we have nonprofit leaders, we have a number of public officials on. We've got people who are doing hard work out to strengthen the community at large. And we know, it's a difficult time in a lot of areas of our communities.
Oh
We've
yeah.
got one of the most interesting things is the diversity economically of this area. You have some of the most, wealthy zip codes in the nation, and you've got some really distressed areas. So I think we have great organizations that are out. We're doing the hard work to address those social ills.
Mhm.
Talk to me about why it matters, why it should matter that we have a thriving tech community, tech ecosystem, and these efforts. What does that mean to kind of maybe groups that you might expect not to really have this on their radar, like edu education, higher ed, K through 12, nonprofits, the public sector. Why does
Yeah,
this matter?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it matters because it takes everyone to do this, right? Cross-sector impact is critical to what we're doing.
Yeah,
My vision for what I would love to see, if I can help move the ball down the field on on our region operating by default, by reflex collaboratively. If us in Tech Hub can facilitate those conversations, it would be a game changer because there's no king to this castle. It's everybody, and it's all counties and all cities. So if we talk about South Florida or tech not being beyond just the startups, right? The startups, they can, when folks are collaborating, you have access to talent, you have more capital and bigger markets to scale. Corporations are critical to the conversation, right? So they embed innovation hubs here, right? So as an example, ServiceNow is part of their announcement was a commitment to focus on our regional ecosystem as an enterprise AI technological hub, just like FPL has focused on the energy sector, just like other corporations, just like City Furniture focuses on logistics, right? These are real companies doing real work, and they also tap into diverse talent pools and new partnerships. And South Florida offers a test bed for them to pilot new technologies. Right, our nonprofits are critical, and you and I both come from a nonprofit background. Our
yeah,
nonprofits are critical because technology is becoming central to solving community challenges, right? Anything from workforce development to healthcare access. And the tech community, if anybody who has worked in tech or entrepreneurship knows, usually incredibly giving, and in terms of like knowledge sharing generally across the board. Meet a young entrepreneur or meet an established entrepreneur if you're a younger person, and share your challenges with them. They and ask them to a cup of coffee, and they will sit with you over a cup of coffee, and they will share some of their war wounds. And so, our nonprofits are critical, building that pipeline, expanding access and opportunity, making it clear that technology is not just for certain people, or if you speak a certain way or you come from a certain zip code, it's for everyone, and there's space for everybody, and you can really help your family through technology and the job that are presented. Our higher ed K through 12 school systems, it's critical. Look at the work MDC is doing. Miami Tech Works, right? Connecting employers to the talent base. Look at the work being done at Palm Beach State under Ava Parker. Unbelievable work. At FAU, right? You and I both are very tied to FAU. At FIU with the Night School of Engineering, I want to give everyone shout outs. NSU is doing incredible work with the Levan Center down there. Our higher ed institutions, alongside our boot camps and alongside our short-term credentials, are critical to on-ramping the diverse talent that we have down here that honestly, if given an opportunity to work hard and make a few bucks and support their family, they will take advantage of it. They just need to be aware of it. And then our public sector, we have so many public sector leaders who get it and who are invested, right? And who see the bigger picture, who are engaging deeply, right? So we're talking about everyone from, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava down in Miami, who recently received a Golden Palm herself, all the way up to, Scott Singer in Palm Beach County, Erica Whitfield on the school board in Palm Beach County doing great work
Right.
with technology
That's right.
in Broward County. So yeah, it takes everyone. It takes our startups, the corporates, nonprofits, education sector, public sector, but we all got to work together, right? And that's our point, is nobody can do it
Well,
alone.
that's where the rubber meets the road, right? We
Yeah.
know that everyone loves the concept of collaboration and partnership, but there can be a lot of friction and a lot of barriers to that actually happening. I mean, and then a group like you really comes in and tries to facilitate, nurture it, connect those dots. Um, so tell me, like, are you seeing, you mentioned some of these other kind of look slightly more mature ecosystems around the country where I'm assuming they've cracked the nut on collaboration and they're working pretty fluidly. Are you seeing signs of people and organizations wanting to work together? Is that a challenge to bring others together
Yeah.
and common projects? Because I love that thematically. I also know how utterly unnatural it can be at the start.
It's easy to get competitive. Look, I'm competitive. I'm a sports guy. You're a sports guy. Who's not competitive, right? You want to win, but it's debugging that lizard brain that says your benefit is my harm, right?
Right.
So there's that aspect. But here's a reality of what we are facing. We're a very unique economy. You look at places like Denver, like Austin, like Atlanta, more or less like the Bay Area. There's generally one major city with kind of like suburbs that emanate out from there, and everyone's kind of locked in on the major brand. South Florida is totally unique in the sense of it's
Very,
three
yes.
three large cities, right? Or I'd say three mid-sized to large cities. Obviously, brand-wise, led by Miami, led by Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. Um, and we have to figure out how do we this geographically diverse economy and business community centered around not one city but three cities. How do we get our folks to collaborate more meaningfully? And then everything that stems from there, right? Our county-based nonprofits, our county-based higher ed institutions. That's a challenge that's unique to us. A great example of this being done well, in my opinion, and what goes to show kind of like the benefit of having kind of one major metro brand. Just look a little bit further north to what's happening in Orlando. Everyone is locked in on Greater Orlando. They are everyone kind of mostly operates in lockstep when it comes to recruiting companies, to placing talent into companies, and they're a really great example. And I think they're doing really good work. The job placement that you see from UCF, from Embry-Riddle, going to all the theme parks, going to the NASA's and the SpaceX's. I mean, it's really cool, right? Um, so something that we face that's unique that they don't is, we have within a 30-minute drive on a bad day, 45 minutes, three amazing cities that anybody want to live in with multiple. Our success is are challenged. We have multiple major companies, numerous major companies in every county, and they're all attracting their own talent base. And then we have nonprofits that are county based. So it's natural to want to do this. And what we see our role as is sharing the 10 and 20-year vision of what this is going to be, right? When you're in downtown San Francisco and somebody is like, hey, there's an event in Palo Alto or Menlo Park, it's not like, boo, Menlo Park, I'm not driving to Menlo Park. It's okay, cool, let's go check out what's going on there, because we're one Bay Area, right?
Right.
And
Everyone's bought
that's where
into
we should
that
be going.
identity. Right.
The
You
identity,
see,
and we just have to, and we are seeing so much progress. Let me share some positives. Look at the announcement by Emerge Americas in partnership with Stephen Ross and the League of 100 to do a regional accelerator. That was a huge step forward. That would not have happened 5 or 10 years ago.
yeah, right.
There's so much investment and energy finally going into this idea of we can't do it alone. And I'm proud that, there a lot of folks are we're engaging with them as Tech Hub, sharing this vision, and they're bought in, and we have some really great announcements to come, hopefully next week or the week after, but it'll show that real leaders are buying into this idea of we need to do this together and we all benefit from each other.
Teasing out some potential coming announcements. Of course you're going to do that. And there's no way you can persuade you to give us a little scoop. No, I get it.
No, I
You're
can't.
probably under an
It's
NDA.
pending board approval, so I can't say a word even if I wanted to.
No, but it is interesting that so half of our mission impact team is up in Orlando, and we have a second office in downtown Orlando. And you're right, they've done a great job of branding that city. You've got one kind of subset of political leaders. You have the companies that all identify as being based in one area. So people are kind of just naturally swimming in the same lane. And so you have a much more complex sort of um, assignment, I would say, in a
Yeah,
lot of ways. You know,
tough
we
job.
we do a lot of work in the Tri-County area, and we say, you've got these ecosystems of leaders, and they're cross sector in each county, and they're the folks and the organizations that really move the needle on things. And they oftentimes don't know their counterparts in the next county over, which is a few miles away, because but they're focused on the same issues, whether it's a social issue or a business development issue. They're focused on the same issues, and all boats do rise to a great degree as we think regionally.
It's
But
so early. We all benefit. We're not at a point where we can block anybody out. Honestly, we all benefit when we all succeed.
Imran, I have not looked at any of these questions, but I see that there's uh, about a dozen that have popped in. We could pop in and see what, unless, how do
Sure.
you feel? We can,
Whatever you
yeah.
want to do. I'm flexible. I'm here.
Okay, let's see what's here. I see. Ah, I like this one. So Kevin Birch, who was a former Impact Lab speaker, amazing guy. He was one of the IT leaders at Office Depot during my time. He has a question here about top three priorities. If you had to boil down, and you probably have a whole bunch, but top three priorities for the coming year in 2026, for your organization, but probably more importantly, for the mission of your organization and the body of work that you lead.
Yeah, for us as an organization, we have a very, very specific year one priority. We, as folks know or may not know, actually, Tech Hub, South Florida Tech Hub, was founded with the merging of two organizations that were Palm Beach and Broward County based, and now it's regional, right? And so that the mission changed, right? It's kind of like we're walking the walk now. Like we were previously the kind of organizations that I've described in this talk about just kind of zoning in exclusively on our local community to saying, look, let's lift our heads up a little bit and have a broader perspective. And part of that, so we've done a really good job in Palm Beach County, Broward County, the Treasure Coast. We've done a little bit in Miami-Dade. Me, I love Miami. I've worked in Miami. I'm in Miami half the week anyways for a game or for something. I'll be at the Canes game this Saturday. I think it's critical for us as an organization, if we're going to call ourselves a regional tech organization, to really more meaningfully embed our presence and loop in leaders in Miami-Dade County. And once we do that, then we can say, hey, we've really done a good job in South Florida. So Miami-Dade County outreach for us as an organization is huge. I think They are the Beast brand in South Florida, and I know a lot of really great people. I know that there's good Miami people in the audience right now. I can actually see his name stood out to me, Pat Morris, with the county under the
Yeah,
mayor.
we love Patrick.
There's so many good leaders in Miami, and they really care and they get it. So Miami-Dade County expansion for our organization means a lot, and that doesn't just mean hosting a happy hour here or there. It means pulling in leaders into our organization, on our committees, and on our board, having a voice at the table for how this organization operates. One, two is when I entered into this role over the summer. I did the listening tour that executives do when you take a job, or good executives do, because you should know you don't have all the answers, that generally others have the answers. And what I kept hearing from our membership was we want to be activated. We want to do more. And so we are launching county-based teams to activate our members and folks in the community that want to do more, right? It's tough to talk about some of the challenges for being a regional organization. At a big picture, you're like, okay, I'm going to host an event in Fort Lauderdale or in Miami. And then okay, well, 2 months later, I'm going to do one in Palm Beach. And 3 months later in Broward, I'm making everyone happy. Actually, the way it works is you host an event in Miami and nobody sees the big picture. The Broward and Palm Beach people say, well, why are you holding an event in Miami? That's impossible for me to get to. And then you hold it in Palm Beach, and then the Miami and Broward people get upset. So what we've done to alleviate this issue is to say, listen, we have these county-based teams. You guys are going to organize events in your county. It'll be kind of understood that these will be hosted by the Miami-Dade County leadership team, the Broward County leadership team, and these will be smaller convenings for the community on the ground that activates our membership to be invested in the mission, that meets a need for our local community, so folks can just walk down the street on Broward Boulevard, like I'm at right now, and attend a cool panel, which is more practical than asking you, frankly, to drive up to Clematis, right? If you're in Hollywood or Miami-Dade. So activating our membership by launching these, kind of getting back to the grassroots. But then three is leaning into, we've had a lot of inbound activity from great employers and corporations that are either moving here or launching here, seeing success, is looping in the right people. And by the right people, I mean folks that really get it, that get what regional growth means, that see where the ecosystem is going to be in a decade, that understand that we have to do it together, and bringing those people to the table meaningfully. So board seats, committee leads, opening this up, right? That's really the goal. And then through our programming, we're supporting our grassroots, our devs, our startup community. We're going to be making meaningful connection among leadership across the region, because how do deals get cut? It's when you are with somebody you know and like, right? Alex, why did I agree to do this interview? I know you, I like you, I'm looking forward to the conversation. Similarly, when our higher ed institutions are looking at a technical solution to something like the student experience or the student onboarding experience, I'm more likely to turn to a Peak Activity, a Silver Logic, an Oz Consulting, if I know those guys, if I know them, we have a relationship, and I say, hey, I don't have to turn
Right.
to a fancy consulting outfit out of the Northeast when I know there's an AI consultancy right down the street that can do the job for me, and I know them. That facilitates business internally. That's where an ecosystem can start to actually build when we're looking internally for solutions, not externally.
No, I thank you for, we throw around these words like ecosystem, and you've done a really good job of illustrating, okay, what is tangibly, what does that mean, and how does it start from its embryonic kind
Yeah,
of first stages? This next question was something that I was going to get to, but I love that we have an anonymous attendee, and I think that's good because I think everyone's thinking this one, and it's not an easy one, and that is, what do we need to do? What do we need to do in our region to incentivize local enterprise companies to commit to hiring locally? That's a tough one. I've worked for four large companies down here, and it's always a desire, but you have organizational needs. You would love for those to be met locally. But
yeah.
what do you say? What do you say to that?
That is the ultimate challenge. And I think a great model for us to follow, and I've had good talks with these folks and they're on board, is look at what Miami Tech Works has done down in Miami-Dade County. It's spun off to be its own C3 now, separate from Miami-Dade College, obviously still connected to Miami-Dade College, funded by a federal grant. And the goal was to basically connect the talent base with our employers, right? So how do we scale that model? It's work that I did at Broward College also. It's work that others are doing and attempting. How do we scale that model to deepen those relationships? But also, how do we get our employers to commit to committing to hiring the early talent such that they can be 4 to 5 year talent, um, that they say they're looking for and can't find down here. Well, it's hard to become a 4 or 5 year experienced employee when you aren't getting the foot in the door. And so it's working with our employers to connect them to outfits. And I can give a shout out to like Init is a great nonprofit. We talk about nonprofits in the area. They identified that need for young talent that needs to build a portfolio, and they weren't getting it from work, right? They weren't getting it from jobs. So they would challenge each other with kind of like makeshift or kind of artificially kind of challenged problems. And they're saying, you know what, solve this now. You're building a portfolio in the process that'll help you get hired. And they've also since spun off from a club at FIU to its own standalone nonprofit. And we work, we know them, we support them. They're having their hackathon a week from ours, and we're supporting them,
Love it.
announcing it. But that's the thing. So you see these gaps being filled in interesting ways, right? You see nonprofits emerging like in it, like others that are seeding that early talent. And then you see institutions like Vanderbilt coming down to Palm Beach County, and their ambition is to have a graduate level, high level program that will functionally, right? They haven't said this, but we can expect it will be the seeding ground for a lot of the senior leader and C-suite at these companies. So when you have a superstar that is raised in Broward or Palm Beach or Miami-Dade, that goes to University of Florida, which has turned into a ridiculously difficult school to get into. It's very different from our days, Alex. um, you know, that they are incentivized to say, hey, let me
Are you saying my wife Jessie couldn't get into UF now? Is that what
she
you're
could. I don't
saying?
know about me.
She could.
She
Okay, I'll
absolutely
make
could.
sure.
But how do we get them to say, look, when they're considering an MBA or when they're considering a master's in AI, data analytics, whatever, come down to a local institution right here in town, and we have those corporate relationships to seed your position. Those are the challenges that we're overcoming. And that's the number one challenge is we need it, but it comes down to relationships. It comes down to quality, right? So we have our industry's guiding curriculum that's always been the dream, but the more that we can foster the relationships, the more we can make that happen. And then therefore our employers are getting the talent with the skills that they want to see. It goes both ways. So it goes with our educational institutions actually meeting the need, but our employers then making that commitment. And so
Yeah,
it takes a leap in some instances.
it does. And I think it takes a long-term mindset and a desire to see long-term thriving, maybe versus what's happening this quarter. Um, and so we need our leaders to be thinking about the long term vibrancy of of this region and how we will all benefit from that. So I want to stay on workforce for a second, and kind of go back to some of the things I wanted to ask because we're hearing it everywhere. And I'm not just talking about AI. I'm really talking about tech disruption at large. AI, obviously, a huge part of it, or especially the mainstream sort of adoption of these past 2 to 3 years, and thinking about the opportunities and maybe some of the more difficult disruption that comes from that. And so you've been on a listening tour. You've probably been drinking from a fire hose and hearing all kinds of pain points and opportunities. Can you unpack a little bit about kind of what you're hearing in terms of workforce disruption, some of the challenges and some of the kind of high points of that?
Oh yeah. That's right now it's a definite sensitive point with kind of the uncertainty with where things are heading economically with interest rates, with AI disruption. There's you're seeing a lot of graduates. We're hearing some, we generally keep things positive here, but you got to be real. We're hearing some horror stories when it comes to new computer science grads, recent computer science grads who are waiting 18 months to get an internship because their skill set was quickly made outdated, right? But that's the challenge. Okay, that's the challenge. We're seeing a lot of sales roles being downsized. We're seeing many coding roles being downsized because it can be accomplished with AI.
Sure.
That's a reality. That's a reality. But it's one of the most important parts of South Florida's tech growth is meeting this workforce disruption and seeding our companies, right? That being said, growth always brings disruption, and I know it's not easy comfort to say, listen, when there's when the automobile became more standardized, horse covered buggies were kind of like made irrelevant, and the student who has student debt and needs to pay bills is like, yeah, that's great, But what does that mean for me practically? What it means practically is our workforce needs to lean in to keeping options open, to maintaining an open mind to opportunities because opportunities are there, but it might require a little bit of upskilling or reskilling, right? So as automation and AI accelerates, finance, healthcare, logistics workers will need to seek out, organizations that are doing reskilling and upskilling opportunities. Or it's really honestly to survive this moment, which is tough, and I recognize that it's so mindset driven in terms of being solutions oriented and not locked into one narrative about who you are as a worker or as a leader in this industry. Alex, you and I both have shifted industries in our background, and we've succeeded at it because we have said, I don't know about you, but I assume that we said, listen, where's the opportunity at, and I'm going to be a part of the solution. And I
Yeah,
think more of our
it
work.
is important to have a mindset of reinventing yourself a number of times over. You don't lose your mission mindset, your big picture, what you want to accomplish, but how you do it and where you do it,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um,
Who do you work for?
Continue.
What's the role? Yeah, it's critical.
I want to, I do, but the time is flying because
Oh my
this
gosh,
is
it's
a
not
great
gonna stop.
conversation.
Yeah.
But I do want to touch on philanthropy. We've got a great question that's come in from Connie Stiskowski. She's the CEO of the American Association of Caregiving Youth and a dear friend. So I'm going to get to her question, but also it fits into one of my questions, which was, how do you see philanthropy fitting into South Florida's tech ecosystem, and how can funders and social investors be a part of the progress? So that's kind of a more macro question. Connie's question is, at a time of fundraising, funding challenges for nonprofits, are you aware of any partnerships that are available for funding to move the capabilities forward within the nonprofit arena? So really thinking
So,
about funding, it is an interesting time, right? And all organizations that our employers are dealing with the cost of living rise that are here that puts pressure on everything. How does philanthropy fit in here?
yeah, no, philanthropy is critical to seed and support the nonprofits doing the work that a for-profit company either doesn't have the bandwidth or the profit motive to pursue. One of the biggest challenges South Florida as a community has faced has been when folks retire here, when folks move here, or the companies are relocated here. We're and then and let's just say forget about retirement. Let's say late stage career, you're a professional, you're eyeing retirement in the next 10 years, you relocate to South Florida, you're working mostly remote, or you check in on your investments that are somewhere else across the country or the globe. Those folks, the challenge has always been getting those folks to cut their checks to local institutions. I can't speak because I am not myself, unfortunately, a multimillionaire or billionaire. But what I do know is that a big reason why those folks cut their checks back where they came from, many of them in the Northeast, one, because there's an emotional tie. Let's set that one aside. Obviously, they have the YMCA, their community YMCA that they grew up going to, and there's an emotional tie there. You can't overcome that. But there's also faith in our ecosystem's ability to capitalize on their contribution. And I think for many people, for many folks who are philanthropically um, um, positioned or oriented, that they have not been reinvesting because they maybe didn't feel comfortable in their dollars being maximized down here. There was a mindset of a very transient mentality when it came to South Florida, or it was just kind of like where it came to retire, but I don't want to invest here. We have multiple generations now, our generation, the generation and generations after us, that are long-term invested here. We're seeing more of a community feel. We're seeing institutions play together seriously and better. We're seeing major companies settle down here. So how do we big picture get philanthropy to play a role? One, they already are. I think look at what JP Morgan is doing in the area. Look at what Blackstone is doing in the area. These are major players that are cutting serious size checks to support our nonprofits, right? And I in a prior role, I worked very closely with the JP Morgan team. I cannot say enough good things about them and the work that they're doing. Dollars available for tech implementation for nonprofits. I don't have that list at the top of my head. I'm happy to research it, but I think I have seen some opportunities. I have seen grant opportunities for nonprofits to undergo digital transformation. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I'm happy to look it up later and provide it to you, Alex.
No, and thank you for that. These are really interesting questions, and I get that they're going to take a little bit of digging. I was thinking about a project that we're about to be working on that's really around emergency response. And of course, there's got to be upskilling involved with helping a community do that better, more efficiently, but a lot of it's outdated technology. And so there's cost of implementing new platforms that can really help a community respond, connect to first responders, get people the help they need in an emergency situation, and then training people on new tech. It's like these these entities that are solving social issues have we all have a benefit in them being able to be more efficient and better at what they do. And technology training is going to be a massive part of that. We
Yeah,
are coming towards the end. So why don't why don't we do this? We'll send out a Q&A and we'll answer all these questions, but we'll hit
sure.
on one of them here, which I think is just interesting. And so would you all extend and talk just a little bit about um, the like tech from a financial services industry, blockchain, Web3. Just what are you seeing there? I mean, that was especially in Miami, that was kind of getting all the play a couple of years ago.
It's real. I mean, look, we had the crypto boom and then we had a pullback. But there is, fintech is one of the most exciting aspects of our tech ecosystem right now and going forward. There's real solutions out there around digital economy, around tokenized use. I mean, these are real. Like, I totally get crypto skepticism. I totally get jokes about NFTs or, et cetera. Um, Companies moved here, the whole industry pulled back. So, maybe they left or maybe they didn't fully settle down. But fintech, there's a ton of opportunity and there's lots of ways for folks to get involved. I mean, if you look at AI and machine learning as a way that it's related to fintech and financial services, if we, it's enabling things like predictive analytics and automation of decision processes. And these are all data science engineers, right? These are degrees that are accessible to the average person. Um, I don't know, you're talking about like, real-time payments, open banking APIs, things like that. There's a ton of opportunity there. And I think fintech, it's definitely an exciting moment. There are Web3 specific clubs and communities that you can tap into. One thing I didn't mention that I wanted to mention in terms of how does the workforce navigate through this moment? A big part of that, and one that we think we push forward and support in terms of us ourselves or other organizations, is investing into community, attending your local meetups, going to your local clubs, broadening out your networks, finding out what's going on, because these are technologies and industries that you can actually break into with a hobbyist level of knowledge. Let me elaborate on that. As an example, our hackathon this weekend is geared towards anybody from your vibe coder to your full on hacker. And we will have employers on site who are seeing high performing individuals who will be presented with internship and employment opportunities. We tie job opportunities with everything we do. Similarly, we're soon to be announced, locked in, hopefully AI boot camps locally that are tied to a hiring component as well, right? So, and these are geared towards, you could just be a hobbyist that is kind of like minimally familiar with LLMs, go through a program, build something, show some moxie, show some toughness, show some grit. And then those are the kind of employees that these companies want, because this technology is so new, you can learn or be taught a lot of it without an advanced degree. Now, obviously, the advanced degree is helpful, but there's such hunger and need for it that there are opportunities. So fintech
Yeah.
is an area that I would encourage everyone to lean into or look into.
Yeah, that's exciting and super encouraging too. We had this whole section of rapid fire questions. We don't have it. We'd have to be so lightning fast. So
Okay.
I want to end with this. So as we were encouraging leaders to join us today, one that I really admire, who kind of had response that maybe you get sometimes, which was, oh well, yeah. I've heard of South Florida Tech Hub, but we get asked to join all kinds of organizations, and it costs money. So I just another organization, right? And I said no, they're not
Thank
just
you.
another organization. What they
Thank you
do
for saying that.
and now, granted, I've been a true believer for a long time. How do you address that question? C-suite leader who can bring a lot to the table if they got their enterprise engaged,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just
No,
another organization?
not just another organization. We are literally the only tech and tech adjacent focused organization that it has a regional focus. of senior leaders with the talent base of developers, right? We're community building, and we've done this, we're not new, right? We go back to our roots of SFTA. It's a 15, 20-year-old organization. Palm Beach Tech is over a decade. So it's a rich community. And we are the only one out there pushing this regional narrative, connecting and selling and pushing this idea of connecting our leaders across the industry and across the region to drive the South Florida tech and business ecosystem of 10 and 20 years from now. And so there, and we work in concert with all the other EDOs. That's the thing. Like, we are here to facilitate your greatness. We aren't here to claim victories. I'm sitting here at the Alliance. We know the BDB folks, the Beacon Council folks. We support everybody. We know Emerge, and we support their efforts. We are really, our role and the way we view ourselves and the way we're going to be operating is being that connector piece. We are the connective tissue. So you want to have a seat at the table. If you're a leader of an entity organization, have a seat. And I know you said quick rapid fire. That's not rapid fire, but we really are the thing that's breaking folks out of their silos regionally and pushing forward this narrative.
It would have been hard to put that into one word or a two-word phrase. So I get that. Imran, I can't thank you enough. Would love to have you back after, a year in this role and all that
That'd be
you've learned
cool.
and what your reflections will be, and I'm sure a lot of progress to report on. I want to make one correction. When I was a part of an old hackathon of yours many years ago when I was at Comcast, it was not hosted at a zoo, hosted at the Science Museum, which is next to the
Which is
zoo.
right
But
next to it. It's even
but
it's easy
maybe
to mix it
maybe a
up.
hackathon at a zoo could be, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's not the right idea.
Maybe. You
But I
never
want
know. That's a cool idea.
you never know. One thing I do know is we're going to continue these great conversations, and we're going to be convening in 1 month, October 20th. My colleague Andre Bailey will be joining us with Dick Batchelor, who's one of Florida and especially Central Florida's kind of most admired and respected public sector and community leaders. They're going to be reflecting and helping organizations navigate really the climate that we're in right now based on the most recent tragic events. And won't go into that. I think we all know what we're talking about, but we've got diverse employee populations who think differently and are passionate about different sides of the aisle and different positions. And we all have to lead these individuals who are passionate under one mission, whether it's a nonprofit or a company, and that's not easy. And again, not something we have to go to alone. So that's going to be a really important, timely conversation. We hope you can join. Again, if anyone is at an inflection point in their organization, is ready to grow, is ready to do more, solving a social issue, or getting your community meaningfully involved in a leadership position within the community, within your industry, we'd love to talk. Just shoot us a note. You can see our general information here, or reach out to me, Alex at missionimpactstrategies.com. I want to say thank you to my team. I want to say thank you to Imran for all that you
Thank
do
you,
and all
guys.
that you're going to be doing for our region. We're fortunate to have leaders like you in top roles. So thank
No,
you
thank you
so
for the
much.
opportunity. I appreciate it.
And with that, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week and has a great weekend, and look forward to seeing you next month at the next Impact Lab. See you, everybody.